Hello everyone. I hope all of you are doing good. So in today's lesson, we're going to be solving May 2026 IB MYP Standard Mathematics past paper. So this paper was recently released and the marking scheme is not here as of yet. So we're going to try to solve the question to the best of our ability. If by any chance if any of my answers is incorrect or something, so do inform me in the comment section, okay? So this will be done and recorded in two parts. So the first part consists of probably question number one till uh, four or five. I'll check, and the second part will consist of the questions remaining, except for the sequences question. Okay. So yeah, let's begin. So you had to select the equivalent expression here. So you have 4y plus 2x equals to 12. So you can see in all of the options that are given to you here, the ideal scenario is that you have to make y the subject of the equation, right? So you can write this as 4y equals minus 2x plus 12, right? Now, logically speaking, it should be crystal clear and evident here that you don't have to solve this question any further. Why? Because the only equation where you have a negative gradient is this one, right? Both of these equations have positive gradients, this one and this one, right? And we are supposed to be having a negative gradient. But even if you were to solve it completely, we know that this can be written as y equals minus 2 over 4x plus 12 over 4. So this would leave you with minus 1 over 2x plus 3. So this would be your answer. This was a very fairly easy question. Okay. Um, Select the correct value. 2 mark question, pretty easy, 45,000. So of course this one is supposed to be here. And then write down the missing value. 4.5 into 10 raised to the power of something. Now we know that logically speaking the decimal point is present here. So 1, 2, 3 and 4. So here should be 4.5 into 10 raised to the power of positive 4. That should be the correct answer. Okay, draggable options. The set of real numbers such that x is at least negative 2 and less than 3. Okay, at least negative 2 and less than 3. So automatically we can eliminate these two, right? The first option that I usually used to give my students was that look for the wrong option first. Look for the wrong option first. Look for the option that needs to be eliminated first. Now, since it says at least negative 2 and less than 3, so automatically we should know that both of these signs should be represented in two separate ways. So automatically we know that this one is supposed to be more correct. Why? Because if we were to look at this logic, this fits in the same criteria, but we need different criteria for both of them, right? So this one would be the answer here. And since it is at least negative 2, which means negative 2 can be equal to x, and less than 3. So less than 3 is for certain, which means 3 is supposed to be the maximum possible value. So this would be the answer, and this is what we're going to be considering here. So as of yet, I'm saying fairly easy questions being asked. Okay. Select the correct simplification for each part of the expression. Okay, so a raised to the power of 10 divided by a raised to the power of 2. So this can also be written this way. And we know that whenever there are different, for example, powers, and there is a division sign in between, so you just subtract from the powers. So this leaves you with a raised to the power of 8 here, right? And a raised to the power of 4 whole squared. Okay, so when I was teaching you all indices, I told you all that whenever there is power within a power, so both of the powers are going to multiply with each other. So this leaves you with a raised to the power of 8. And you are supposed to write down the missing value. Yeah. So this becomes, of course, when there are same bases and there's a multiplication sign in between, so the powers are supposed to add with each other, right? So this is supposed to give you a raised to the power of 16. So I hope you all did this correct. Okay. A ball is dropped at the start of the pathway and lands in either bucket X, Y, or Z. The probability that the ball travels along each path is shown in the following diagram. Okay, so there are three possible total probabilities: X, Y, and Z. Let's check. Okay, so automatically we must assume for this value it should be 1 minus 2 over 5. So this becomes 3 over 5. And the similar approach is being continued here. Okay, so this is supposed to be 3 over 5 as well, and this is supposed to be 3 over 5 as well. It's a 1 mark question, so yeah, I suppose, I mean, it's not exactly rocket science, just a 1 mark question, so yeah, that makes sense. Determine the probability that the ball lands in bucket X. Okay, so that's simple. The probability that it lands in bucket X can be understood by this one. This is the simple probability, right? So you can simply write this as 2 over 5 times 2 over 5. So that becomes 4 over 25. And if you want to represent this in the form of fractions, you can also, sorry, decimals, that would also be 0.16. Find the probability that the ball lands in bucket Y. This is a 3 mark question, which means yes, that makes sense because this is relatively longer working. If we start from here, for instance, so the working for this would be probability of Y 3 over 5 multiplied by 2 over 5. So that becomes 6 divided by 25. But that is through one method, right? The other method is still there. 2 over 5 multiplied by 3 over 5. So that also becomes 6 over 25. Now what do you have to do is that you have to add those total probabilities with each other. As simple as that. So let me just move it down. Now what are you going to do, people? Here we are just going to add both of these values together, 6 over 25 plus 6 over 25, and you'll get 12 over 25. So I hope all of you solve these questions correctly, because there is no other possibility that you people will have any different sort of a question in probability. Okay, two balls are dropped one after the other at the start of the pathway. Determine the probability that both balls land in bucket Y. Okay, so two balls and both of them land in Y. The probability of landing in Y is what we exactly calculated as 12 over 25, right? Did I write 12 over 25? Wait, let me check. Yeah. And that was for one ball, right? So if two balls are present, and of course nothing is mentioned like one ball was replaced, or like there's no some sort of replacement, right? It's just straightforward. So since the dropping one ball does not change the overall possibilities or the probability for the second ball, these are completely independent events. So what do we do in independent events? We just multiply the probability of the first landing ball in Y by the probability of the second one. So simply 12 over 25 multiplied by 12 over 25. So this becomes 144. 25 times 25, let me check. This is 625, right? Or I don't know what value would it be in decimals, but if it's recurring, then there's just no need to mention. Okay, so I hope both of these questions, and logically speaking, I expect each and every student to get full in these two questions. So how this question number two was of how many marks? 8 marks. Question one was of, oh, I don't remember. I think one, two, three, four, five, 6, 7, 8, 8. So this should be a confirmed 16. Maximum, I think you can lose 1 or 2 marks maximum, not less, not more than that. Acha, so let's continue. The dimensions of a solid cylinder are given in the following diagram. Okay. So you people might have been given the formula if I'm not wrong. So look, it's a 3 mark question, and application of that formula is of 2 marks and 1 mark to show to the nearest whole number. And you have to show the answer. So like it's not rocket science exactly. So what's the formula for the volume of a cylinder? That's simply pi r square h. We know that the volume is 452. Pi is pi as it is. Pi won't change. R square is as it is. And the value of h is supposed to be positive 9, right? Let me check if I did something as a mistake. No, I don't think so. Yeah. Now what do we do? We have to make r square the subject of the equation. So we have r square equals 452 over 9 pi. So we are going to get an answer of 452 divided by 9 pi becomes 15.98. Okay. But considering this, that this is basically r square, we have to find the value of r. So we had r equals under root of 15.98, which becomes 3.99. So this can be rounded off to 4. So this is exactly the 3 marks that all of you people need. Then it says the dimensions of a solid cylinder. It's the same part of the question. Yes. The dimensions of a solid cylinder are given in the diagram below. Okay. Determine the total surface area of a cylinder A. Express your answer in terms of pi. So you have to determine the total surface area and then you have to express it in terms of pi. This is where I think most students have messed out. Now, even if you don't understand the formula for the surface area, in most cases it's given. Look, here we have two circles, right? We know that the surface area for a circle is simply pi r square. But since there are two circles given, so we'll just write it as 2 pi r square, right? Because there are two circles. The formula for the area of a cylinder, which includes the curved part only, so this part only, that's 2 pi r h. So what are you being told? 2 pi r square plus 2 pi r h equals to the area. The value of r is 4 and the value of h is 9, right? So we can write this as, have I started the recording? Yes, I have. 2 multiplied by pi multiplied by, um, wait, what do we have it? 4 square plus 2 pi into 4 into 9. Am I getting it right? Wait a second. Just have to be really careful with all of this. Yeah. So this becomes 32 pi. This part of the area becomes 32 pi. And this part becomes 9 times 4 is 36, 36 times 2 is 72, 72 pi. So this is going to leave you all with an answer of 72 pi. So this becomes 104 pi. So this is going to give you all 2 marks. Hope you all understood this part as well. Okay. Hmm. The following cylinder shows a second solid cylinder. The height of each cylinder is provided. Cylinder A and cylinder B are similar shapes. Use your answer from part B. Determine the total surface area of cylinder B. Total surface area for cylinder A was 104 pi, right? And 104 pi, if I was to calculate it to find a roughly somewhat similar value, it would be 326. Let's take it to at least 3 decimal places. 326.726 centimeters squared. Okay, so just for the idea, I'll just use 326 value. Now it's clear that the scale factor, which is whenever we are solving questions of similarity, we always consider the idea of a scale factor, which is k. Now you can see that the height of b, and if you were to divide it by the height of a, you would get an answer of positive 2, right? Because 18 divided by 9 is basically positive 2. And we know that the area scale factor is always going to be k squared, which is 2 squared, which is 4. And just to add on, this is like a general information that the volume scale factor, like this is not in the question right now, but just trying to explain it, is simply k cube, right? Whatever the value would be. This was just an explanation. So, how do we find the value of area of the larger cylinder? Now it's crystal clear in front of us that the area scale factor is simply 4 in front of us. So what do? 104 pi multiplied by 4. So if you were to use that value exact, you can also use 104 pi directly. That's not an issue. So you get 416 pi. 416 pi. And if you were to find its rough exact value, you would get somewhere around 1306.9. So yeah, it's better off that you write 416 pi, right? I hope this makes sense as well. So we are done with question number 3 as well, right? 8, 8, and 7. This was a 7-mark question. So we are done with 23 marks already in 18 minutes. That's great. Okay, this question is what confused uh, many students. Let's try to dissect this question. A square is inscribed in a circle with radius r equals 6 centimeters as shown in the following diagram. Show that the length of one side of the square is 8.49. Now, this is a cyclic quadrilateral, but no rule for a cyclic quadrilateral was supposed to be applied here. What's fascinating is that you people should understand that this is an isosceles triangle as well. And there is a rule that when an isosceles triangle is being made inside a cyclic quadrilateral and the radii, or of course they're going to be touching the center point. When they are touching the center point like this, a 90-degree angle is made at the center. So this gives us, what does this give us exactly? This gives us a right angle triangle, right? It looks like this, 6, 6, and x. So if you were to solve this, we'll get 6 squared plus 6 squared to get x squared. And this is the basically x value, and this telling us to prove it that it's 8.49. So 36 plus 36 equals x squared. 72 equals x squared. X equals 72's under root. So if I was to solve it on a calculator, I would get an answer of 6 root 2, which can be the same as 8.485, which can be rounded off to 8.49. Okay, I hope this is clear. 8 isosceles triangles are created by rotating the square. Okay, so since 8 isosceles triangles are being created, we can also see that um, an octagon is created as well, right? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 sides. An octagon is created. And as you know that the length of one triangle is supposed to be, sorry, one complete length is 8.49. So what's the question? Let me read the question first. Show that angle theta equals 45. Hmm. Let's apply some knowledge. It's a 1 mark question. 8.49 is this entire length as well, right? This entire length is also 8.49. This one. If we were to divide 8.49 by 3 first, let's divide 8.49 by 3. So we'll get 2.83. So this entire length B is basically 2.83. So if B is 2.83 and this length, this length is supposed to be half of 2.83. If you divide by 2, we'll get 1.14. 1.41, sorry. 1.415. Let me just do it again. 2.83 divided by 1.415 divided by 2. Okay, divided by 2 is 1.415. Yes, yes, that's correct. So we have to show that the angle theta is 45. Okay, and what about the height? Now, if you were to look at the height, you know that basically the this part entirely is of 12 centimeters or whatever the length unit is, and this is 8.49. So how do you solve this one? This height should be multiplied by 2. This height should be basically multiplied by 2 and should be added to 8.49 to give us an answer of 12. Let me write it down. 2h plus 8.49 equals 12. 2h equals 12 minus 8.49. Let me just do 12.88 minus 8.49 first. 12 minus 8.49. This becomes 3.51. H equals 3.51 over 2, which becomes, I think, 1.755. 1.755. Okay. Now we have both of these values. We have the value of h and we have the value of theta. Oh, sorry, not theta, this one, the base. Most of the questions are of show that, right? So it's not going to be exactly too difficult for you. That's the good part. So if you were to have a triangle which looks like this, here is theta, this is 1.415, and this is 1.755. So this is supposed to be the base, this is supposed to be the perpendicular. So we know that tan of theta equals perpendicular over base, 1.755 over 1.415. Let me solve it. Let's check what if we do get the right answer. 1.755 over 1.415. Oh, that's problematic. We're not getting the answer. Why not? We're getting 51.12, or maybe I should let's change the orientation of the answer. Tan inverse of 1.415 over 1.755 becomes 38. Okay, that's problematic. Why am I not getting the right value? Wait a second. 1.415 or 3.5 to 3.51. Hmm. Okay. This is quite fascinating because how to mathematically show the answer is supposed to be 45 degrees? This is problematic. So, wait. It's a one mark question. Why is it being too problematic? Look, if you were to look at this diagram, if you were to just look at the diagram, you can understand that this shape that is being formed, it is being formed by two identical intersecting squares that are rotated by 45 degrees. Okay, and there is a reason why it's being formed a complete square, right? So how would you prove that this value is supposed to be exactly 45 degrees? How do you prove that? Look, we know that the base of the triangle, this one, the base of the triangle, it's completely horizontal, right? This base, let me show it. This base is completely horizontal, and an octagon is being created as well. Okay, and we know that the sides of the triangle are formed by the edges of the second square. The sides of the triangle, this one, all of these, all of these sides are being formed by what? Of the edges of the second square, which is exactly rotated 45 degrees. But how do you prove it mathematically? This is the problem, because there has to be some mathematical connotation here. Okay, we'll just get back to this question. um, yeah, we'll just get back to this question. So let's just move on to the next one. Determine the height h. I think we just calculated that. That was 1.755. Acha. So one thing that students might get confused in was that why did we do 2h? 2h plus 8.49 equals 12, right? This is what might have confused a few students. The reason was simple. The reason was that, look, initially this triangle that we can see was a part of the square. Initially, that was a part of the square. So it had to be unfolded twice. Look here. Initially, this triangle was inside. This triangle was supposed to be forming a shape which looked like this. So this was 1h basically, 1h. And when it was opened completely, so this becomes 2h, right? I hope this makes you people understand like this, right? This is why the examiner just gave a question like this to confuse you all. So that's why we got 1.755. Okay, determine the length of the base B of the triangle. That was easy. I think we just had to divide 8.49 by 3. Let me just check it and do it actually the right way. 8.49 divided by 3, we get 2.83. Yeah, I mean, hence determine the total area of the 8 isosceles triangles. Okay, so um, this question can be solved in this way. Total area of the 8 isosceles triangle. Now, if you were to look at one triangle, um, the entire base was 2.83. If you were to divide 2.83 by 2, you would get 1.415, right? 1.415. And the value of h is, I think it was 1.755, right? If I tell you to find the value of this triangle only, so that's 1 over 2 multiplied by base of 1.415 multiplied by its height 1.755. 1 over 2 multiplied by 1.415 multiplied by 1.755. This becomes 1.24 1.242. 1.242. Now what are we going to do? The next thing that we are supposed to do is, look, we just considered a very small fraction of this triangle. How many other fractions are left? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, and 15. And like, this was basically the first one. There are 15 others. So what do? We just multiply this by the total number of 16, right? Because there were total 16 half right angled triangles. So if we were to multiply the answer by 16, we would get somewhere around 19.87 or 19.9. Now, another way of doing that was using the 1 over 2 AB sine C formula. That would have worked as well. That's not an issue either. So that's up to the student to decide which one he or she wants to use. So basically, if you would have been able to find the value of this hypotenuse and this entire base, which is 2.83, you can just multiply the formula by using 1 over 2 times a, which is basically the hypotenuse in this case, multiplied by the base, multiplied by sine of 45. And then you could have multiplied the value by 8. So that was another way that would have given you the right answer as well. Let f of x equals 2x squared minus 2x minus 4. Write down the y coordinate of point R. The y coordinate is basically the value when the value of x is 0. The value of y when the value of x is supposed to be 0. So if we were to substitute 0 into the place of x, so you get f of x equals 2 into 0 squared minus 2 into 0 minus 4. All of them are going to cancel. Y equals negative 4. Just be careful if you people, I hope that examiners won't cut your marks for that, but just be careful, don't write your answer in this form. Ideally, if it would have said write down the coordinates of point R, then this would have been correct, 0 comma 4. Ideally, just write y comma negative 4. That would be better off. F of x is written in the form f of x equals a into x minus p into x minus q, where a, p, q are whole numbers not equal to 0. Okay, that's great. So basically what it did is that it took one value as common. Now, logically speaking, 2 should be taken as common in this situation, isn't it? If I take 2 as common, within the bracket I have x squared minus x minus 2. So automatically I know that the value of a is supposed to be 2. And if I was to, compare it, that's instant. Like, it's not exactly rocket science. X squared minus x minus 2. This is the first part. Then what do we do next? The next thing that we're supposed to be doing is making factors of 2. So 2 can only be factored by 2 times 1, right? I can write this as x squared minus uh, plus x squared plus x minus 2x minus 2. So I have x as common, and within the bracket I have x plus 1. Here I have minus 2 as common, and within the bracket I have x plus 1 again. Isn't it? So I get x minus 2 and x plus 1. And this can be made by simply multiplying the entire equation by 2. This is what we did exactly here. So yeah, this is how we are supposed to be doing it. Determine the value of A, the value of P, and the value of Q. So, okay, we're not done with the question as well. We're not done with the question as of yet. Let me just move this part down. Now, one of the values is automatically supposed to be positive 2, and the other value is supposed to be negative 1, right? How would we understand this? Which one would be which value? So, of course, T is supposed to be positive 2, and Q is supposed to be, sorry, S is supposed to be negative 1. So, yeah, this is how you're supposed to dictate all of those values. Write down the x coordinates of point S and T. Okay, how can we solve this one? Okay, we just did that. We just did that. We just did that. The value, the x coordinates of S and T are S is supposed to be negative 1 and T is supposed to be positive 2. I find this paper quite frankly easy apart from that 1 mark question that we just left out. Okay, so here this was the first part of it. Inshallah, I'll be uploading the rest of the questions in some time, inshallah. Okay, so like and subscribe for more.